Let's continue building our all locations table view controller. So what we want to do whenever we open this view, let me open my already application here. So whenever we transition from our location here, from our weather to our all locations view controller, we want to access our user defaults so we can check what locations we have saved in our user defaults, so we can load our table view with these locations. So let's do this. On top, I'm going to put a mark variables. Let's put another mark here, view life cycle. So variables, we need some kind of array to hold a source of our table view data. So let's call this var weather data. Actually, let's do weather data. And this is gonna be an array of weather locations, and it's gonna be an optional. And then we want another variable to be saved locations, and this is gonna be also weather location, and this is actually no, this weather data we don't know right now, we will put it later on. This is what we need for now, save location, and the type is gonna be weather locations, and it's an optional because the first time we run our application and if we open this, we don't have anything in our user defaults, and maybe even the other times as well, because it doesn't mean that our user will go and add something, some location for to our user defaults. Maybe he just wants to see the weather for our current location, and this way he doesn't have to save anything in our user defaults. Okay, in our viewDidLoad function, what we want to do is we want to load everything we have in our user defaults. So let's create a function for this. Let's do this right before our navigation. So I'm going to put a mark, and let's call this like load user defaults. Let's call this user defaults, and we're going to write a function that is going to be getting our locations. So say private func and we call this load locations from user defaults. And remember, like we are doing in our choose city view controller, load locations function. Where is this load locations from user defaults? So this is what exactly we need to do, because again, we are going to get the data, and we need to decode this because we are using an encoder to actually do our coding before we can save everything. Let's just copy this function, go back to our file here, and let's just paste it here. So let me just copy it again, so we don't have to write this function twice. So I have my function load user defaults, and the key is of course the same because we are saving under this key. So we want to make sure that we load from this key. And now we need to access our user defaults because we don't have any user defaults on top here. So let's just create one. We say let user defaults equal user defaults dot standard. Now this way our error should disappear. So we have access to our user defaults. So what we want to do every time we load from our user defaults, is to take every location that we have and to create actually we do have a location, a weather object. We want to set our saved locations, which we are doing, to be equal to whatever we have received from our user defaults. So let's, as soon as we do it, let's see how many objects we have in our saved location. So I say print, and let's say we have saved locations.count locations in user defaults. And what we need to do is to call this function in our viewDidLoad function. So every time our viewDidLoad function gets called, we want to load everything from our user defaults. So let's run this. And let's go to our view here, and it says you have 6 locations in user defaults. So it means we currently have saved 6 objects inside our user defaults, and our loading function works as expected.